Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is my Kaldheim Retrospective. And for those of you who haven't watched my last couple of videos about this, I guess the first retrospective I did was my Commander Legends retrospective. I like to go back and take a look at sets after they've been out for a year. And Kaldheim has been out for about a year now. I can't remember what the exact release date was, but I really like to go back and see, all of the predictions that we made, how close were we, and a year is a pretty good time to see where everything falls out. Things will change, obviously, in 5 and 10 years, but a year is a good time for things to circulate and sort of go out there in the wild. And a lot of decks that people will get really excited about, in the beginning, and I watch this very closely. You'll see them really, really popular right out of the gate, and then they'll realize, hey, maybe this deck's not so fun, and so it'll fall off quite a bit. And that has happened with Kaldheim. And just like I said with Commander Legends, now you guys can actually go back and take a look at some of the things I said, because this was the first set actually that I spoiled. It's the first set that came out after I started my channel. So this one is sort of nostalgic for me to actually go back and look at. I will first say that it's an incredibly popular set, all right? There was 33 commanders in this set. That's a ton. And I had a little bit of a freak out even. You can watch some of my videos back when I first started my channel about the unbelievable, overwhelming flood of legendary creatures we got, because I think there was 75 in Commander Legends if you include all the partner commanders, and then another 33 with Kaldheim. I'm like, come on, you guys, it's too much. And I wasn't wrong. It was a lot. It was definitely, they went a little overboard, I think, with all of those commanders all at once. 33 for a commander set, I think, is about fifth all time for legendary creatures in a set. So that's a ton. That's a lot. It is, in my opinion, too many. They went back to the uncommon, legendary creature thing, which is something they don't do a lot. They only do from time to time. They really went heavy, I think, after the commander players in this set. And ultimately, this was a incredibly popular commander set. And I did my most popular commander sets video where you essentially concentrated mostly on the legendary creatures and how many decks each legendary creature has and how many legendary creatures there are in the set, that's how I evaluated the popularity of those sets. And I didn't include Kaldheim because it hadn't been out for a year yet, but if I had, it would be right up there. I think it would be about 8 or 9. There's a lot of commanders and commander decks from this set. It's a very popular set. So as usual, I'm going to go on EDH Rec to see. I like to look at all the stats on there. It's the best place for, it's the best database for information on commander. We never can be entirely accurate with these things, but this is the probably the most accurate way there is out there to sort of get a evaluation of how popular things are and stuff like that. So as we can see in the top row here, I'm sure there's not a lot of surprises for everybody. Esika, God of the Tree, and I will just say it was not originally the most popular commander. I think Magda was for a little while. Then it became Turgid. I believe Turgid was for quite a while the most popular commander from this set, but eventually became Esika, and I called it. That's what I said. You can go check out my video. I said that Esika would be the most popular commander from this set. I thought it would be even more popular. I thought it would be one of the most popular commanders in the entire format. It's currently got 3,500 decks here. What I wasn't taking into account was all of the 5-color commanders that had come out recently before this one, right? We had already Golos and Joda and Ramos, the Dragon Engine, and all these other Sisay, right? All these other fantastic 5-color commanders had already come out beforehand. So I think that's why, because there's a plethora of 5-color good stuff, really commanders is what I consider them, to choose from. Esika didn't get quite as much love as it typically would if it had come out. I think if Esika had come out in like 2017 or 18, it would have been way more popular. But still, the most popular commander from the set, no surprise there. Orvar, another really popular commander, and to no one's surprise, very powerful. Almost CEDH level. I actually have not played against this commander. Is it CEDH level? It maybe could be. I think a couple of my patrons were talking about how the command zone they had this. I think Josh was playing it and went off, as you would expect from an Orvar the Earl form deck, right? No big surprise there that it's popular. Also, you know, really, really powerful. Maybe too powerful. Speaking of which, Tergrid is the third most popular commander here. And man, by the way, it hasn't been banned as of making this video. And it'll be funny that, you know, when I make this video, from the time I make it to when I post it, if Tergrid gets banned, I don't know. There definitely is a lot of buzz about it. I won't be unhappy if it gets banned. I won't really care if it doesn't get banned either. You know, for me, I'm not a huge fan of banning cards in general. I think that we can just avoid playing these cards. You know, if everyone hates playing against Tergrid, who's playing the Tergrid decks? Like, isn't your play group telling you that they don't want to play against it anymore? Right? This is the thing that sort of confuses me about cards like Orvar and Tergrid. If everyone hates playing against them, then who's playing it? Right? That's what I don't understand. So I've never played against either of those commanders, Tergrid or Orvar. So, you know, for me, I get it. Orvar's really powerful. Tergrid's really powerful and also really annoying. You know, again, no one was surprised at that. As soon as I saw that commander, I was like, oh, so you can just cast like a smallpox and that's enough to pretty much turn the game over. Like, it's pretty much over from there, right? It's very easy to take over the game with a Tergrid. That being said, removal wins games, right, guys? Like, you can just, in a mono black deck, it's really hard to protect your stuff. And it's very easy for you just to hold up a removal spell. And so when Tergrid hits the table, don't you just kill it, right? I mean, that's what I would do. So, you know, if I'm sitting in a game and I see an Orvar or a Tergrid in the command zone, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep my Path to Exile in my hand and wait until they cast it. And then immediately, before they can even equip their Lightning Greaves or whatever, bam. I mean, Orvar may be less so because you're in blue and they have counter spells, but with Tergrid, man, how are they going to protect their commander if you just remove it? Magda coming in at number 4, and again, not surprising, the treasure token theme, which kind of started with, I wouldn't say it started with Magda, it started with Smothering Tithe and Dockside Extortion, and Magda was not the first treasure token commander. Gadrick was the first, I think, actual legendary creature that created treasure tokens. Magda was the first one because Gadrick wasn't great, very underwhelming. Definitely, I will end up doing that on my Underwhelming Commanders video at some point. Magda is way better. Obviously, they decided let's bump it up a notch, and you know, not only are you creating treasure tokens, but you can use them to go get stuff out of your library and put it directly into play, which is always great. So no surprise there that that's a really popular commander. Moving on down the list, we got Koma Cosmos Serpent in 5th place with just about 1,700 decks. And again, not a big surprise. This is another one that I knew was going to be popular. This actually was my first, I'm pretty sure this was my first ever video that got over 1,000 views. I made a Koma Cosmos Serpent deck tech, and honestly, it wasn't great. I made a couple of really weird decisions in that deck. I was really rushing. This was in February, and I posted a video every day for the month of February, and I was really rushing those videos out, and I made quite a bit of mistakes. It did help promote my channel though, so it all worked out in the end. Koma, I'm pretty sure my Koma deck tech was my first ever video that got over 1,000 views, so I was pretty pumped about that because a lot of people wanted to play it. It's a fun, beefy, it is a very splashy, you know, it definitely fits that battle cruiser Magic type of scenario where I have this giant, really expensive commander, but when it comes down, it's going to end the game pretty quick. A lot of people really don't like playing against this one either, honestly. So there's actually quite a few commanders from Kaldheim that people don't like playing against. Jorn, also Keldring, the other side. This one, again, I haven't played against, and I'm wondering how many people play the backside of this. You know, I always find it interesting when you have MDFC commanders that you have to play one side or the other. You can't really play both unless you return it to your hand. And this is the case here. It makes it a little difficult. You may play target snow permanent from your graveyard this turn. That's definitely a build-aroundable ability, no question. The front side's also very build-aroundable. Obviously, you're doing snow. So a great snow commander, not even remotely surprised how popular that one is. Finn, I'm a little surprised at how popular this is. And I'm even more surprised with how many people have asked me to do this on my Underwhelming Commanders videos. I've had at least 5 or 6 requests for it. It's got 1,300 decks. That's not underwhelming. It's not underwhelming or unpopular. It's neither. It's a really powerful ability, and also it's a popular commander. So No, I won't be doing this on my Underwhelming Commander series ever, I don't think. I mean, everyone hates Infect, and this is like a turbo Infect commander. So again, this is another one where if I see it in the command zone, man, I'm holding up a removal spell. I don't know if I'm ever going to let my opponent keep this on the table. So that to me, a lot of times will hurt a commander's popularity if it is a very threatening, like I could just up and kill you right away out of the blue and you don't see it coming. That's the kind of scenarios that people don't like. I'm actually surprised as popular as it is. Kardur Doomscourge, this one is very interesting, and I just talked about this. Top 20 commanders of the year, which of course I did at the end of the year in December, and this got my vote for the flew under the radar the most commander. It was the commander that, and the ranking here absolutely confirms that, because in the beginning Kardur wasn't getting a lot of love, not a lot of people were playing him, and as the year went on, people realized how good that ability is, of that super goad ability, right? It's better than goad, and then also the life drain effect tacked on there. It's really a great commander. I have now played against this guy 3 times against my patrons on Spell Table, and man, it can get out of hand fast. You get a Conjurer's Closet down with this guy, and you just can't. You end up all just killing each other, right? I mean, you really have to deal with that situation fast, or else you're just dead. So I'm not surprised at all that this has over 1,000 decks now. It really has. In the beginning, wasn't that popular, but has gained a ton of popularity. Next up is Vorinclex Monstrous Raider, and Atrax is always out there. So if you're doing the counters theme, Atrax always seems like the best option there. Mostly because you have 4 colors available to you. Here you have to do monocolored. So I guess it's right about where I thought it would be. Yeah, it makes sense. You're doing the counters thing, which isn't new. The second part there, if an opponent would put 1 or more counters on it, hosing your opponent's counter theme, that's new, and I think that's pretty good. And I really like the add-on there, where it makes it not an exact copy of an Antraxa or a Pure and Toothy. You're doing something a little bit different. I like that a lot. So it's definitely a great commander, and I guess I'm not surprised at all with where it landed. Toski, Bearer of Secrets next. Again, it's about where I expected. This one, I'm pretty sure, lost quite a bit of popularity when Chatterfang came out, because obviously Chatterfang is the better, probably Squirrel tribal commander now. A lot of people did Squirrel tribe with Toski in the beginning because it just was a Squirrel. And also dealing damage and drawing cards fits with all those tokens you're making, the Squirrel tokens and whatnot. So it did fit, but even though it wasn't really a Squirrel tribal commander, Chatterfang more so is, even though that's not necessarily a tribal commander either. You can do a lot of things with Chatterfang. Toski is just a great card. I draw lots of cards every time. It's a coastal piracy in the command zone. That's fantastic. I had this in my Commanders in the 99 video because I think even though it's a good commander, I think it's even better in the 99. You can put it in so many decks. I have this in a couple of decks myself. Vega the Watcher next is a little surprising because even though it says draw a card on it, which is always good for a commander, it is... I did a deck tech for this on my channel, and I just didn't love the deck. It's my least favorite deck tech I've ever done is my Vega the Watcher deck. I actually... A lot of people asked, what's the win con? I didn't have one. I didn't really go down that road with it. And, what is the win con? When you make a Vega the Watcher deck, what's your win con? Because you're doing there's lots you can do with the deck, which is what makes it really fun. You can do suspend and flashback and all this stuff. I mean, casting a spell anywhere other than your hand, there's lots of ways to do that. You can cast it from exile and graveyard, and I guess even if you cast your commander, if Vega wasn't your commander, that would be casting a spell from anywhere other than your hand. But what do you do with the deck other than that, though, right? And I think that's what a lot of people are like, wow, I can draw tons of cards, but then what, right? And you don't have to have a win con, but I think a lot of people ran into that issue, and I'm surprised it's this popular. I thought it would be a little lower, but I guess I'm not super surprised. Birgi, God of Storytelling, and of course the backside Harnfell Horn of Bounty. This one I thought would be more popular for sure. This is one of the ones that when it came out, I had maybe a bit of an overreaction. I was like, oh my God, it's busted. All these because I had, we had Turgrid and Orvar and Asika and then Birgi. And then I'm like, oh man, this is too much. And that's when I did my maybe somewhat, I won't say infamous, but another one of my videos that was very early to get me some attention was my Orvar Spoiler video, which turned into me maybe having a little bit of overreaction about just these overpowered commanders. And Bergie is really powerful. Obviously it leans towards the storm sort of scenario. Also, you want to be boasting a lot in that deck as well, right? Because you get to boast twice each turn. Of course, nobody's doing that. I don't know how many mono red boast cards there are. There's maybe 2 or 3. I don't know if anyone actually does that. That's funny. Nobody cares about that ability. The backside is almost better though. I really like that Harnfell. If I was to build a Bergie deck, it would be around the horn side. I think that's I don't know if it's better than the front, but it's definitely really, really good. I thought this one would be more popular for sure. 738 decks. I thought it would be in the top row, but it for sure in the second row. The fact that it's in the third row is pretty surprising. Next up, Valky God of Lies. Another one that I thought would be a little more popular. It's an interesting theme. It's unique. It's less unique now. It was very unique when it came out. The Exile Tribal thing wasn't really that popular. I don't think there was actually a commander for that yet. But playing my opponent's stuff from Exile, I thought, man, people are going to love that. And I think they, for whatever reason, they shied away from it. Again, you get into the situation where you have the front side that you want to be playing, but also the back side that you want to be playing. So which side do you play first? You got to figure out how to get your Valky back into your hand so that you can play the Tybalt side. Because I think the Tybalt side is more what you want to play. And then, I don't know. I think it a little bit of I'm playing my opponent's stuff hurt it a little bit, right? And again, like I've said, and was pointed out to me, a lot of people play via spell table or webcam, and the I play my opponent's stuff doesn't work so well. So I think that hurt it a little bit as well. Agar, the Freezing Flame. Yeah, again, most of these ones in the middle are not super surprising. Drawing cards again. You got a commander that says draw card on it. I ended up doing a pinger deck with this, which I thought was kind of interesting. You got to go check out the deck. It's a little complex. Maybe I went a little too complex because pingers are mostly wizards. So that's a wizard you control dealing damage. Obviously, the easier way to go here is just lots of big board wipes. I Blasphemous Act, draw a ton of cards. That maybe is a bit of a boring strategy. So maybe that's why this guy wasn't more popular. Svella Ice Shaper is maybe the most surprising one, I think. When I first saw this, I was like, man, that's awful. A 3-mana commander. I pay 3 mana to make a mana rock. That doesn't seem very good. And 8 mana to look at the top 4 cards of your library and cast one without paying its mana cost. So in order to get value out of that, you have to have something that's at least 8 mana or more, right? And so I thought it was terrible. You have 2 abilities that are tapping. So I'm just like, oh, this is awful. But I came up with a couple of interesting ideas that you could use for it. So I decided to do a deck tech. I went crazy with Kaldheim. I don't know how many deck techs I made from this set, but there was a lot. And, I played the deck. I play tested it a bit, and I was like, this is actually kind of fun, And I think that's what a lot of other people realized. I thought this guy would be rock bottom. I thought he would be the least popular in the set. But it actually wasn't that bad, and it was kind of fun. And then I realized, oh yeah, you could put like a Seedborn Muse in the deck, and there's some stuff that you can do with the untapping where you could really go to town with this guy. So it gained a lot of popularity because, again, sort of like with Cardor, I think people realized it's a lot more interesting than it originally seems. Terrelf God of Fury was another one that I was like, oh, God, like Bergie and those, I thought this is too much. I thought I can just cast a Blasphemous Act and end the game. Can you actually? I guess it depends on what's in play, but I didn't love that. I don't love the cards that I can just cast one spell and the game's over. That's not fun. I think a lot of people also thought a similar thing. So maybe, what are people doing with this deck? I don't know. This is another deck that I haven't actually seen out in the wild at all. You're just doing the big board wipe thing, I think. Maybe. Is that what you're doing? If not, if you're doing something else, if you guys got someone out there has this deck, comment below what you're doing with it. If you're just doing the I cast a giant board wipe and kill my opponents with it. Repercussion seems like a good fit here, right? Other than that, let me know. Maybe you're playing around the backside, Terrelf's Hammer. That would be interesting. Seralf Realm Eater is, again, another one that I thought would be more popular. I will point out, though, right, like I was talking about with the popularity of this set, we're in the first, second, third, fourth. I'm in the 5th row of commanders here already, and we still have 579 decks for Seralf. That's pretty darn good, right? I thought this one would be more popular. This was the first one I saw from the set, but I believe this is the first card I ever spoiled on my channel. And I right away, again, whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a counter on it. That's all the time. That's a really easy, not only is that really easy to build around, it's also your opponents are doing it themselves, right? Just like with my Denic deck, I can build around that ability, but my opponent's stuff goes to their graveyard all the time, even if I just sit there and do nothing. Your opponent cracks a fetch land, that's a permanent going to the graveyard, you get a counter on it. So I thought, okay, well, that's really easy to build around. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you can remove the counters to exile everything with mana value less than or equal to the counters. That's an incredibly powerful ability. I thought this would be way more popular. I almost thought this could be a CEDH commander because of that, because you could just, in CEDH, everyone plays really low to the ground. So all you would have to do is just go around the table once, put a couple counters on your Seralf, remove them on your upkeep, and exile everyone's mana rocks and all their, mystic remoras and whatnot. Is it a little unfun? Maybe that's why it's a lot lower than I thought it would be, because just exiling everyone's stuff every turn, that's not a lot of fun. So maybe that's why. Next up, we got Cole, the Forge Master, and this is my most overhyped, and it still has 494 decks, which is pretty good. It got a lot of hype because of the combo potential. When it first got spoiled, everyone's like, oh my goodness, because whenever another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, you could return it to your hand. So if you have an Ornithopter, you can return it to your hand and then play it for free. So you get an infinite loop pretty easily, but so what, right? I don't think that really excites people a lot anymore. It really was for a long time, and especially a lot of content creators would go right to the infinite combo. Oh, this commander combos with this card and this card and this card. And that would get a lot of excitement about certain commanders. And then it got to the point where people just didn't care about that so much anymore. It's like, yeah, okay, so there's this one combo. And then they would put the deck together and they would get the combo off and they would go, okay, well, game over, now what, right? Like, that's not fun. And doing that every single game is even less fun. So a lot of commanders that, not that you have to do that. You can obviously you can do a lot of different things with Call. Next up, Maya Breda Protector. Another one I did a deck tech for. I want to say the last deck tech I did from Kaldheim, maybe. It wasn't super exciting. It's an anthem. It makes tokens. It's doing a landfall strategy. A lot of stuff that we've seen before. It is a good commander, and that's why it does, it's sitting around in the middle, but a little boring because we just have a lot of commanders that are always doing stuff like that already. I did a low to the ground, I hate on big creatures theme, where all my creatures are going to be 2 power or less, so I do a lot of, Meek Stone type of effects where I hate on all those big creatures. Firja, Judge of Valor, another one that is, I actually thought it might be a little lower. It is a bit tough to use that ability whenever you cast your second spell each turn, which is not something you see in Orzhov colors. They decided to do it in black and white. There's a tiny, tiny bit of support from this set for black and white with the, we do 2 spells a turn. Usually you see that in blue and red. So you can't use any of those cards in this deck. I went with a very interesting black and white control theme. You can check out that deck tech. It's an interesting one. Interestingly enough, my Egon deck, which I will get to, which is, I'm sure, very far down the list. I don't actually know where it is. I'm sure it's right near the bottom. A patron of mine combined those 2 deck ideas, my Firja and my Egon deck, combined them, made a really interesting deck. Next up, Cosima, God of Voyage. And, again, not a lot of surprise here. You're in mono blue landfall. You can also do vehicles. I think I have a patron that has a mono blue vehicles deck with this, which you can do. You may play land cards from among those cards as long as, you can play the lands, which is interesting. I thought the Cosima side was better. Drawing lots of cards is always great. It was just a interesting sort of scenario to do a mono. I like doing that off-color theme. So mono blue landfall, interesting scenario. Didn't end up keeping this deck, though. This is a deck I actually made for myself, and I was sort of on the fence for a while. I didn't end up actually keeping it. Narfi Betrayer King, another snow one, which I thought would be a little more popular because of the snow. You're also doing zombies. You also have that return to the battlefield, so there is some infinite loops here you can get into. I think it's a little more difficult to do this one, but a lot of things going on here. I'm actually surprised this is not more popular. I also really like the art. Yeah, it's weird. It's a legendary snow creature. There's not that many of those, so I thought it might be a little more popular for that reason. Speaking of which, Morite of the Frost, man, this is the one, again, another one, just like with Bergie, that when I saw it, I was like, wow, that's so good. And maybe I was overreacting because I already thought that a Mistform Ultimus deck was a pretty cool deck because you're doing Lord Tribal essentially. And this is Lord Tribal and then a whole bunch of things on top of it, right? It's just like Orvar and a lot of the commanders they came out with. It's like, okay, here's a direction you can go with this commander and let's pile a whole bunch of other stuff on top of it. I'm shocked this isn't more popular. I might have to revisit it, right? Not only are you in Changeling Tribal, but you're also, I can copy any permanent. I can do the counters. I can do the snow thing. There's so much to do here. I'm shocked this isn't more popular. This is the most shocking one of all for me. I think I definitely will have to revisit this one and maybe make another deck. I might go in a different direction though. I have a few ideas here. Vargoth, another one that I'm really surprised. And again, another one that I was like, oh, tutor on a stick for your commander? That's busted. And another one that I was like, maybe I overreacted a little. Did I overreact? It's tutor on a stick for your commander. That's so good. I can't believe this isn't more popular. Again, maybe just because it's boring, right? It's, oh, my commander tutors, boring. Maybe that's why it didn't get a lot of love. I've seen this in the 99 of a lot of decks. I've seen it. I have not seen any of this out in the wild. I've seen it in the 99 of a lot of decks, though, because it's a pretty good tutor. Helvar, God of Battle. Yeah, this is about where I would expect. It's mono white equipment. We got like about 12 of those already. Also, you have the Boros or an equipment option as well, which is typically better. As a lot of people have pointed out about Halvar, his ability, although good, isn't great because at the beginning of each combat, you may attach target or equipment attached to a creature you control. So you can't cheat equip costs here, which you can do with a lot of other equipment commanders. This one you actually have to. So if you have that really expensive stuff, like that Colossus Hammer, that you have to equip it to another creature before you can swap to the other creature. So you can't really cheat equip costs there, which is why this guy is not nearly as popular as a lot of those other ones. Alron, God of Cosmos, and Haka, Whispering Raven. And again, I did this one on my channel. I did a deck tech for it, and I did the Haka side. I thought the Haka side was a lot more interesting. Harold, King of Skemfar. Again, pretty surprised this even has 100 decks. Lathril, just like, come on. It is, and I will get to that. That's the Kaldheim Commander sets, which I will get to after. I can't believe how popular that one is, but I'll get to it. This one is just it's so minimal. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 5 cards of your library and you reveal an Elf, Warrior, or Tyvar card. I guess maybe you could do... the Tyvar thing's interesting. You could also do Warrior Tribal here. Black-green Warrior Tribal? Yeah, so maybe people are doing that because as a black-green Elf Tribal commander, there's at least several better options. So, Egon, not all the way at the bottom. I'm kind of surprised. Are they playing the Egon side or are they playing the Throne of Death side? I played the deck I made, which is the most death-defying deck ever assembled. Go check it out. It's a really funny, interesting deck. I made it so that you could use both sides, but more so the throne side so that you're milling yourself. It is a self-mill strategy. 61 decks. Not bad. Not bad. Getting to the really unpopular ones, we have Kolvari, God of Kinship. And again, first of all, the Ringheart Crest side, I don't know why you would ever play that. It's just a mana rock, a bad mana rock. So why would you ever play that side? The front side, you're just playing mono green legendary tribal, which is not bad, but even in mono green, like Reke, what is this? Reke the Historian or something? That guy is mono green legendary tribal, is even better than this one because you get to draw cards. So you even have a better option if you want to do mono green legendary tribal. It's not bad, but I'm not surprised at all. It's way down at the bottom of the list. Redain, again, not surprised. It's way at the bottom. Obviously, none of the ones at the bottom are going to be surprising. There was some very underwhelming ones at the bottom. Redain, again, I love Redain in the night. I just think this Valkmir Protector Shield could go in any deck. It's fantastic. Just having the prevent damage, having the taxing effect every time your opponents want to target you or your stuff. The Redain side's also pretty good, right? So in any deck, you can throw this in. As a commander... It looks like a Stacks commander, even though it's not really. So I think it might get a lot of hate for that reason. You really could do, if you want to do any mono-white strategy, you could use Redain as your commander just because he's going to be helpful, right? If your opponents are playing snowlands, you play the front side. Non-creature spells your opponents control with converted mana cost 4 or greater cost 2 more to cast. That's also great. And the Valkyria side is always good. So really great card. I don't know if it's a great commander. It's a great card, though. I have it in a couple decks. Arnie Broken Brow. Oof, yeah, not very exciting. Post. You may change Arnie Broken Brow's power to 1 plus the greatest power among other creatures you control. Oof, yeah, not a lot of ways to build around that, unfortunately. It's not a great commander at all. I'm actually surprised it has 26 decks. Ingaroon Eyes, another one I did on my Underwhelming Commanders video. Another one that I was kind of excited when I first saw it because I was like, oh, it's so interesting. When it dies, you get to draw cards, which is something you don't see in blue. It's just so hard to build around that ability. And when I did it in my Underwhelming Commander series, I didn't really build around it. To be quite honest, I built around the Scry 3 more so. It's really tough, and it's a lot of hoops to jump through just to draw 3 cards and have your commander go back to the command zone, I think. And right at the bottom is Sigrid God-Favored with only 16 decks. And again, I'm surprised it has that many. I have a Sigrid deck. I love it. I'll have it forever. And this is just the way I am. Call me a hipster or an elitist or whatever you want to call me. I like the fact that my deck is at the very bottom here. It's definitely very underwhelming. Of course, it's not surprising at all that it's unpopular, but the strategy that I came up with it for it is pretty interesting, and I like it a lot. The deck is, maybe 30-40% built around my commander, but then synergizes with everything else I'm doing, so I like the deck a lot. I'm not surprised at all that it's this unpopular, that it's at the bottom. So let's check out some of the 99 cards here, and of course, the World Tree is number 1. Well, it's number 1, like the way they do it on EDH Rec is it's the percentile, right? So in 5-color decks, it's in 40% of 5-color decks. I'm surprised it's not more than that. It's almost an auto-include for a 5-color deck just for the fact that it's fixing your lands. The bottom part is not really that important for me if I'm using it. Obviously, it's just a really unique card that's going to see a lot of play in a lot of decks. The Pathways, no big surprise there. Yeah, those are some of the most popular dual lands in the format now. We also got the snow dual lands, which are also really, really popular. No surprise there. Asika coming in. Again, really popular among 5-color decks because why not throw it in there, right? Again, Toski, Bergi. You look at some of the commanders that are really popular in the 99 of decks. Tabalt's Trickery, no surprise there. 20,000 decks. It is, if you just look at decks alone, yeah, it's one of the most popular cards from the entire set. No big surprise there. It's a red counterspell. I actually had this used against me for the first time the other day. One of my patrons cast a Tabalt's Trickery against me, countered my spell. It actually worked out all right for me. Definitely a good card. It's a mono red counterspell, so can't go wrong with that. Realm Walker. Oh boy, that's in 17,000 decks. It's okay. For me, I've seen this in a lot of decks where I don't think it needs to be. Like, you may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library, so you really have to be in a heavy tribal theme in order for this to make sense, and even in an elf deck where you're going to have a lot of elves, you're going to have to take out one of your lord effects to put this one in. So I don't know. That's a lot of decks. 17,000. Wow. For a very specific, I consider it to be a very specific effect. Raven Form, 18,000 decks. Again, one of the most popular, less than Tabalt's Trickery. Ew. I think there would be more. Like, this is just an auto include in a mono blue deck, and Dimir, Grixis, a lot of decks. Maybe not Grixis because red deals with artifacts really well. And then Binding the Old Gods, another really great removal spell that can go in a lot of decks, destroying a non-land permanent. Then you get to fetch a land. Then your creatures get Death Touch. Really great card. Then I'm just going to finish up by talking about the Kaldheim Commanders, and both really, really popular. I did Raynar and I really liked the Raynar deck tech that I did on my channel, and I was going to keep that deck, but it just became too popular, and I'm just a little bit of an elitist that way. For me, it goes to my mindset of how the format works, and if I play a really popular commander, I think it just makes me a target right out of the gate. I mean, it does, right? So I like to avoid them. So I took that deck apart. Lathril, though, this is bananas. 5,200 decks. Like, are you kidding me? It is the most popular Golgari commander now, and we're actually going to go... I'll just close out here by talking about Lathril, because this really just blows my mind. I didn't even talk about this in my top commanders of the year. More popular than Marin. Wow, Marin has finally been unseated. Finally, Marin was the most popular commander in the entire format for a while, got bumped out by Atraxa, and then when I started playing, right around the time I started playing, Atraxa was number 1 and Marin was number 2 for the longest time. Marin is no longer even the most popular commander in its own colors. And look at that, Chatterfang number 3, holy man. And Gitrog again bounced down to number 4. This is mind-blowing for me. I can't believe, and it's a precon, and you do have the little bit, what I've noticed is you have the precon effect where if a commander is a precon, and I think Raynar as well would not nearly have been as popular if it wasn't a precon commander. Precon commanders always tend to be a lot more popular than if they were just, printed in any other set. But this is shocking. Of all the things that happened in 2021 in Commander, the fact that Lathril has unseated Marin as the most popular Golgaric commander might be number 1. I think Marin's way better. I just think Marin's busted. Maybe people are bored of it, though. Maybe they just want new blood, right? Lathril's good, no question. Really good commander. I'm not going to say that it's not. There's a lot of really neat things you can do there. But 5,200 decks? Wow, that's a lot. Can't believe it. But that's it. That is all. Just a Kaldheim, looking over those cards, looking over mostly the commanders. I like to talk about the commanders more than anything because I think commanders are more impactful on the format than anything else. And a little bit of the 99 cards. It's interesting. It's just interesting to see how things pan out after a year. The popularity of some of these commanders. Some are shocking how popular they are. Some are pretty surprising how not popular they are, right? So what do you guys think? Comment below what is the most surprising thing about Kaldheim, how it all played out, where everything sits now after a year of it being released. What's the most surprising for you? Let me know. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.